Love these flavors, guys. These are the flavors of my childhood. And I think they're literally some of the best flavors out there. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Around the World at Ksenia's Table. I'm Ksenia Prince, the food blogger and recipe developer behind At the Immigrant's Table. And every week we're going to be meeting here to explore the world through their kitchen. And today is our second episode, and we're going to be focusing on my place of birth, which is the former Soviet Union, and specifically more of Russia-Ukraine cuisine. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys. This is the second time I'm recording this opening, and that's because we had some technical issues. So if you see some differences between the first bit and then the second bit, know that it's all true. There were some tech challenges, and we had to re-record this. But that's okay. We're going to go with the flow. So in today's episode, we're going to make a couple of dishes that are near and dear to my heart and that I grew up with. The first is going to be Ukrainian borscht, and it's going to be specifically vegetarian Ukrainian borscht. I learned the recipe from a father of an ex, but my grandmother has been making a very similar version for years, and I'll tell you more about that soon. The second thing we're going to be making is Olivier Salad, and that's again a very typical Russian salad that everybody has grown up on and we make every year for New Year's. So without further ado, we're going to start by making the borscht, and I'll tell you a little bit about its history as we go. So, like I said, we're going to start by making borscht. And to do that, we're going to set up our cutting station, and we're going to get the most important ingredient in any Russian-Ukrainian cooking session, and that's my cup of tea. So that's going to be our trusted little helper standing here. Again, it wouldn't be Russian kitchen if we didn't have a cup of tea. So now, borscht is typically a beet-based soup. And we're going to start by cutting the ends off our beets and then peeling them. So now, you don't fully have to peel your beets. That is a choice. But I rather, with beets, just because they can get quite dirty, I do prefer to peel them. With other things, as you'll see, I actually keep the peel on, because it maintains more of the nutrients. But back to what we're talking about. So borscht is a beet-based soup. That's the basic. There's other ways you can flavor it, which is sometimes you can flavor it with kvass, or even some people add milk and cream while cooking it, or some people add kefir while cooking it, like at the end. But we're gonna make very traditional, typical beets, root veggies, and then a few other things, and we're gonna cook it on water. Now, there is a lot of debate in different families about how the vegetables for your borscht should be cut. Some people insist on grating them, shredding, grating, whatever you wanna call it, and others, like me, prefer to cut them. The reason I like to cut is because it maintains a bit of texture. It keeps your soup a little bit more interesting. I find that when it's shredded, it all kind of melts together. There isn't too much textural definition and differentiation, and I prefer to keep my soup having a bit more character. So after we peeled our beets, we're going to cut them. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of this later. So now we're just gonna cut our beets. So to cut beets, I just like to chop them into slices. Whoop! It's very violent beet cutting. Gonna clean that a little bit. So I prefer to cut them into slices. Then we're gonna stack a few slices together. Gonna stack a few slices together, and then we're gonna cut those into sticks, and then go cube. So again, as you can see, it's still going to be pretty small pieces, but the pieces are going to keep some of their texture. So we're going to repeat all that with our remaining beets. I'll put you guys on break while I finish chopping all the beets, because you probably don't need to watch it all happen in real time, as it's going to take a bit of time. So once I'm done chopping all my beets, I'll bring you guys back. Hi, okay, so our beets are chopped, and now it's time to add them to our pot. Now, what we're going to do with the pot, though, is we're going to add a little bit of oil to the bottom. And you want about 2 tablespoons of oil. You can also do this on butter. And then we're going to add our beets. Now, I cubed them to about 1/2 inch or about a little less than 1 centimeter. Depends on if you want empirical or metric. Imperial? I always wonder, is it imperial? Is it empirical? How do you say it? Let me know in the comments below. So now we're going to put that to cook at about medium heat. Okay. So they're going to stand there and cook. And meanwhile, we're going to move on to prepping our next course, which is Olivier Salad. So we're going to rinse our knife so our ingredients are not pink. And we're going to move on to the building blocks of Olivier Salad, which are carrots and potatoes. Now, I am not going to peel my carrots and potatoes. I know that's blasphemous, but really, you're going to keep more of your nutrients like that. And it's something that, so these were washed and scraped to ensure that they're as clean as can be. And you really don't want to, you still want to keep your salad pretty clean. You can also peel them if you want. If you're making this for New Year's, if you're making this for Nowy God, I would recommend that you peel them. If you're making them for everyday consumption, you don't have to. As I'm just making this for our everyday, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to keep them as they are. Again, they've been brushed, cleaned. You don't have to worry, but this way they keep more of their nutrients. My mom is a pediatrician, and so our whole life she's been telling us that you shouldn't peel your veggies because you'll be losing a lot of their nutrients like that. And I try to do the same thing with my kids. My mom would always chase my children around when they were babies. And if we dropped their pacifiers, my mom would be like, don't wash them, don't wash them. Your kids need dirt. So this is your way of giving them a little bit of dirt. Now, I'm not a doctor, in case you were concerned or wondering. So I'm not going to tell you that that's 100% true. But this is what my mom says. She says that you want a little bit of dirt to improve their nutritional system. Nutritional immune system, good God, sorry. Okay, so now we're gonna, and again, we're chopping up our potatoes and our carrots also to about 1/2 inch in size. Okay. I'm gonna do about 1/2 inch to 1 centimeter, to about 1 centimeter in size cubes. Okay. I'm gonna do the same with the carrots, and again, when I'm done, I'll bring you guys back to us. So we'll take a quick break for carrots and tea chopping. Hi. Okay, so our carrots and potatoes are chopped. Tea is slowly decreasing, and our beets are also ready to be covered. And we're going to cover this and really put this on low so that they can continue steaming inside and sweating. We call this in Russian sweating. So we're going to let the beets do that. And meanwhile, we're going to transfer our carrots and potatoes to here. So Olivier Salad has a very interesting history to it. I really wanted to know how the salad came to be, so I researched this. And the way the story goes is that there was a very famous hotel in Moscow that would make a version of the Olivier Salad. And this was back in the 19th century, in the 1800s. And they would do the salad with all the typical things that you're gonna see today. Now we're just gonna really lower our beets. But they would also put in all sorts of meats in it. So it was goose meat and cow tongue and really like everything you can, like deer and like some really unsavory meats as well. So all of these meats would go in to the salad. And it was guarded as a state secret. Hold on, So it was guarded as a state secret, and nobody was allowed to know what goes into the salad. And then apparently there was a cook from the hotel that went to work for a competing hotel across the street and took the recipe to them. And so the original hotel got very, very upset and had to scramble to change its recipe. But what we have today is allegedly like the remnants of that original recipe, which of course looked quite different. But that's the history. Now, the other component that we're gonna need for Olivier salad is eggs. And we're gonna add, I do about 3 eggs. You can do 2, you can do 4, really up to you and how eggy you want it. And we're gonna cover them with water. And we're gonna set them to cook. And so now what's gonna happen is that our beets are gonna cook and sweat for a few minutes until they soften a little bit, and then we're gonna add the rest of the components. And our potatoes and carrots are gonna come to a boil and cook until they soften. And meanwhile, the eggs are gonna cook for 12 minutes, and then we're gonna put them in an ice cold bath. So come back to us when it's time to add the next ingredient to our beets. See you soon. Hi, welcome back. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes. It's been 10 minutes after we covered our beets with a lid. So it's time to add our next stage because they're now cooked. So the next thing we're gonna add to our borscht are carrots. And similarly to the Olivier salad, we're going to dice them up. They're washed well, there's no issues. But I'm not gonna peel them because that's where all the nutrients are. I'm gonna keep saying it, I'm gonna annoy you to death. And then you will maybe give it a try, hopefully. I'll tell you that every time I cook with people, they're mortified that I don't peel my carrots. And I'm like, let me get my mom, the pediatrician, on the phone so she can tell you why it's a good idea that you give your children some dirt. Really, you know? I wouldn't recommend that they eat earth. But as it is right now, a little bit of germs are not gonna kill them, and they're actually good for them. There's a lot of nutrients in this peel, and we don't want to waste that. So hopefully you will give it a try, or let me know in the comments. Do you also cook your carrots without peeling? Okay, great. We're gonna add our carrots to our beets. We're gonna give it a stir. Now, these carrots are gonna saute, and in the meantime, we're gonna add some onions. So for a pot this size, I'm gonna add 2 small onions. If you have a very large onion, go with 1. Whoop. We're gonna dice our onions. Now, like I said, I learned this recipe from Terry, but my grandmother, Ina, my mom's mom, makes borscht on a weekly basis. She was born and grew up in Belarus, before immigrating to Russia at the time, during the war, during the Second World War, when the Nazis came to her village in Belarus. Her mom took my grandmother and her two younger brothers. My grandmother was 10. Her oldest brother was 8, and the youngest brother was 6. And my great-grandmother escaped with all the children. My great-grandfather was actually fighting in the front in Russia. And she took the children and escaped. Nobody else listened. None of her relatives wanted to leave the shtetl that they lived in. It was called, the town was called Bobruisk. And she just took the kids and ran. And they had to cross through a river. And the family story, is that while they were swimming across the river with the children, the Nazis were shooting on them from one end because they already got to the city and killed everybody in it. And started killing everybody in it at that point. And the Russians were shooting on them from the other end because they didn't want refugees to enter. So this is the family legend. My grandmother tears up every time she talks about it. I tear up when telling this to you. But I don't think it's a legend. I mean, I think this is the family story. And if my great-grandmother hadn't crossed that river, none of us would be here. And then they actually hid in the forest for about 2 weeks until the Partizani found them. Now, the length of time they hid in the Russian forest, that one changes by the retelling. Sometimes it's 2 weeks, sometimes it's 2 months. That, I guess, we'll never know. But, with little children, I'm inclined to believe it was 2 weeks until they met up with the Partizani. And then they were able to actually enter Russia and, stay there for a bit. They then proceeded to live on the streets for about 2 years until the war ended and my grandfather was reunited with them. And then once my great-grandmother was able to prove that she's related to a soldier in the front, then they got, housing and all the benefits. But yeah, my grandmother lived as a refugee in, I think, Kaliningrad at the time. St. Petersburg today, and she lived as a refugee for 2 years. They were surviving off of family handouts, relatives who could give them things. But yeah, 3 children living on the street. I'll say that I'm crying because of the onion, but that would be a lie. So that was their story. And once they were able to reunite with my great-grandfather, they were able to get housing and, a stipend. But yes, my grandmother Ina makes borscht for my family every week. She makes a giant pot. Sometimes she makes a vegetarian recipe. Sometimes she makes it with chicken. Sometimes she makes it with beef. Her chicken recipe is also on the blog. Her chicken borscht recipe is also going to be on the blog. But yeah, it's really kind of like the family recipe. Borscht is a huge part of how my family lives. Sorry, that was a little bit emotional, so I'll go on. Now, we're also going to add a little bit of garlic. Now, some people will not add garlic, other people will add garlic. This is up to you. I like what garlic does to the soup. I think it adds a lot of depth. But if you're really you don't like garlic, you can skip it. We're going to take 2 cloves and we're going to smack them. I'm going to take a second clove, smack that. If you grew up in the 90s, you would know the song, but you're not here to hear me sing, that's for sure. So we're going to dice the garlic. Yeah. Okay. And I'm just going to give it a bit of a go over. Okay, then we're going to take this garlic and we're going to add it to our soup. Сейчас я еще добавлю туда. Now our eggs are boiling. We set a 12-minute timer. Our borscht is cooking with the beets, the carrots, the onions, and the garlic inside. And now we're going to add some potatoes and then water. So we're gonna, again, keep our washed potatoes. We're gonna dice them fine. And we're gonna set it gonna add it to the beets. Now, when I told you guys that my grandmother Ina makes borscht for my family every week, you might be wondering, who is she cooking borscht for? Doesn't your mom cook? Well, my mom cooks, but my parents also still continue working. And my grandmother, despite being 85 now, insists on helping them in every way she can. My grandmother Ina has never, ever stopped running. I don't think I've seen her not run a day in my life. She used to be a pediatrician, and now she's retired, and we joke that she's retired to become my mother's housekeeper. She insists on helping the cleaner every week. She cooks for my mom. She makes borscht and vinaigrette every week, a large batch, so that, my mom and dad don't have to work so hard. She comes and visits their cat. She comes and cleans the yard weekly because she claims that my parents don't take care of the yard enough, which is probably true. Grandmother knows best. But yeah, like without my grandmother Ina, I think that my parents' household would fall apart, honestly. So we're gonna add the potatoes to our beets. We're gonna give it all a good stir. And we're going to add some water to our borscht. Now, we definitely want to add enough water to cover all of our veggies and then some. So I usually put between 4 and 6 cups, usually around 6. That's it. 6 cups of water have been added. We're also going to add our seasonings. So we have bay leaves, we have peppers and allspice berries. Okay. Now we're going to increase it to high heat to make sure that it boils. And then once it comes to a boil, we're gonna lower our heat and let it cook for about 30 minutes until all the veggies are nice, soft, the broth is flavored, and then you will taste it. And we're gonna add salt and vinegar to make sure, salt, vinegar, and my great grandmother's secret ingredient, which I'll tell you about when we get to it. But yeah, so now it's gonna cook for about 30 minutes, and we're gonna take another little break and get some more tea. It wouldn't be a Russian cooking show, Russian, Ukrainian, former Soviet cooking show if we didn't drink copious amounts of tea. So get a break and get yourself a cup of tea. Oh, you're back. Okay, good timing because our eggs are almost done. And meanwhile, our potatoes are coming to softness. So it's time to add our herbs. So I typically use, like Terry taught me, I typically use a mix of parsley and a mix of dill. In my house, it's mainly dill, but really, like, if you're not a fan of dill, you can use just parsley. If you're not a fan of parsley, you can use just dill. And you can skip them, though it wouldn't be super, super traditional at that point. So we're just gonna cut. I'd say, by the way, if you don't love herbs, what you could do is tie the whole puchok, the whole thing together with a kitchen twine, and then just let it cook in your soup and then remove it. So that way you don't get all the fine little herb bits and you don't get a super pronounced flavor, but you still get that whiff of something. So I would say if you have little children, when I was little, I hated herbs and I wouldn't eat anything that had herbs. I ignore my kids when they try to tell me they don't want the green stuff. I tell them, take it out. That's your problem. Yeah, that's tough love here, tough love. But my mom, like, I would scream bloody murder if she tried to bring herbs anywhere near. So she would do the, like the little bouquet of herbs that then gets pulled out. And I also think that that's what they do in like very fine dining. They really pull it out to avoid kind of contaminating the soup, but still flavor it. So we're gonna add this to our soup. I'm gonna mix it all. Lid on, and we're gonna give it about 5 more minutes before we add the vinegar, the salt, and my great-grandmother's secret ingredient. So our eggs are fully boiled. We're going to remove them from our stovetop, and we're gonna drain them. And then we're gonna take our drained whole eggs and we're gonna put them in an ice water bath. And the reason we're doing this is that I can more quickly cool them. Okay, so it's gonna sit in an ice water bath for a few minutes. We're gonna let our eggs sit here a little bit to cool down. And then we're going to, meanwhile, add our frozen peas to the soup. Now, Terry would put any frozen veggies he had. So he would put oftentimes a mix. My grandmother also does a mix, Sunfrost mix in Israel. But I just like frozen peas. I don't like everything else. I only like frozen peas. So we're gonna add them to our borscht. So while those are cooking, we're gonna talk a little bit, we're gonna check on our eggs and we're gonna talk a little bit about what we're going to add to our borscht to really set it apart. Okay, our eggs are in room temperature, so we're going to break them. I just crack them like this. Sometimes I use the back of a knife, and then look at that. Because we put them in a nice ice bath, the peel comes out super, super easy. Same, gonna do a second one. And a crack. You can also use the back of a knife to crack your eggs, but I just use usually my cutting board. If you have any extra egg bits on your peel, you just dunk them into that ice bath. And the third egg, we're gonna, nice. So now we're gonna cut our eggs. And look at that, perfect. We're gonna cut our egg, beautiful, just the texture you want on your hard-boiled eggs. You don't want them to be jammy, you don't want them to be overcooked. You just want them to be nice and right. Okay, so we're gonna dice them more finely. Doesn't matter if they're kind of falling apart a little bit. We're not making what's the deviled eggs here. This is gonna be a salad, so they're all gonna go together. Okay, so once we've done chopping our eggs, we're gonna put them in the same container where we're gonna put the rest of our salad. Now this is not gonna be my serving bowl for the salad, but this is gonna be the bowl in which I mix the rest of the ingredients. So you just wanna prep it already for the rest of the salad. And now that we have our eggs chopped, we're going to take our potatoes and carrots off the stovetop. They're nice and boiled, and we're gonna drain them. So we're gonna run them through a strainer. Да. Да, это больше витаминов. Okay. Okay. So once we've drained our potatoes, we're gonna put them, I put them in a bowl, and we need to basically cool them down to room temperature. So it happens to be snowing outside, so I'm just gonna put them outside, and they're gonna cool down within seconds. You wanna come join me and see? So it's a nice snowy day here in Montreal. So we're gonna literally put our little bowl of potatoes here to cool down. Okay. Okay, so our potatoes and carrots are sitting outside cooling down, and now we're going to finish our borscht because it should be ready by now. So borscht, the flavor of borscht deepens as time goes on. It's not meant to be perfect the moment it comes out of the bowl. You need to add a few things to it to get that flavor. Now, the flavor of borscht is meant to be the perfect line between sweet and sour. And we're gonna add a couple of things to kind of heighten those two flavors. Okay, so we're gonna take our borscht, get all that steam. It's good for your face. Get in there. It's good for your skin. And now we're gonna add a couple of things. So first, of course, we're gonna add salt. I'm gonna add a ton. You're gonna need a spoon. Okay? And we're gonna need a little bowl to taste. So hold on, and we're gonna get and we're gonna need a ladle. So the way it's gonna work, now comes the crucial part. Now is the time you start tasting your borscht for balance. So it's great, all the veggies are cooked, it looks fantastic, but we need to take out the bay leaves. You don't need them. So find your bay leaves. Yeah, easy peasy. I got the two out. I don't worry about the allspice and the peppercorns. Like, it's fine to avoid them, and if you get them in your mouth, you just spit them out. Some people, if you really want to take out the bay leaves and the peppercorns, then you just want to put them inside cheesecloth, tie it with a bag, and take it out. Okay, so we already added salt. We're going to take a little bit. We just need the liquid, and we're going to taste it. It needs more salt. So this is like this. I can tell you approximately how much salt is needed for these quantities, but you have to taste it. You can't just serve food and expect it to be perfect. You have to taste your food. So let's see if our salt is good. Perfect. Now the salt is good. However, that doesn't mean the borscht is perfect. To get the borscht perfect, you need to add a couple of things. You need to add vinegar. Now you can use regular white vinegar, but I like the flavor of French white wine vinegar. And I start with about 1/4 cup, okay? So again, we're gonna test it. And why do I dump it? Because otherwise I'm not gonna taste the new, right? Okay. The sourness is good. The sourness is there. So 1/4 cup was enough for my borscht, but you have to add more, something else. You want to heighten your sweetness. So my grandmother would use plum jam. Plum jam is a little bit hard to find in normal North American stores. So find a jam that is a little sour, or you can use plum sauce. I know this is a bit unconventional, but plum sauce has a very similar flavor profile in that it's a little sweet and a little sour. I happen to already have a jam that I like and know it's gonna work in this, so I'm just gonna put a little bit of it. And the jam you're adding needs to be kind of sweet and sour. It cannot be a very sweet jam, so no strawberry jam here, but plum jam works. I happen to be using pineapple jam, which not everybody will have again, but I know that it works. Marmalade will work too, because it's a little bit sweet and sour. Now, let me try. And this is my great-grandmother, Dora, my great-grandmother, Fruma, who learned it from her mom, Dora. That's their secret recipe. So this is Fruma's secret recipe. Guys, this is the flavor you want. So now that my borscht is perfect, I'm gonna ladle myself extra liquid. And serve it to myself before my Olivier salad is ready, because I got hungry cooking all this food. So for the borscht, so this is the borscht as it is, but for it to be really, really perfect, you need to add a touch of sour cream, just 1 spoon. But this goes to taste, and I do like my sour cream. Okay. And a few touches of herbs, fresh herbs. I only do dill. So in traditional Russian and Ukrainian families, when you serve this to your table, you would actually bring a bowl of herbs already diced and chopped really fine, and you would serve them in the middle of the table, alongside a bowl of sour cream in the middle, and everybody would serve it as they see fit. So bon appetit, enjoy. Okay. I want to taste some with everything mixed in. I'm letting my potatoes and carrots cool, but meanwhile I want to break. Honestly, it's perfect. It feels like a warm hug. It's a cold day outside. Let me swallow. It's a cold day outside, and something like this that reminds you of childhood is just what you need. Now, when you mix in the sour cream, the color of the borscht is going to change, and it's going to become a bit more pink. So it moves from being purple, and it becomes pink. And the more sour cream you add, the more pink it's going to become. So if you happen to serve it for somebody you love, you can tell them that just as you add things to your relationship and it changes, so does borscht change with how much sour cream and how much herbs you add to it. So it's a little bit of romance in every bowl of borscht. While our potatoes and carrots are cooling down, we're gonna cut another one of the essential ingredients that makes Olivier salad what it is, and that's pickles. Now, I'm using Polish style pickles, which are probably as close to like kosher salt pickles as you can get. But I have a fantastic kosher salt pickles recipe on my blog. So if you want to make your own pickles, go for it. I got you covered on how to get started with that. So check out the blog. And there's also some videos on our channel. So we're just gonna dice them, same size as the potato, same size as the carrot, same size as the eggs. Everything needs to be kind of fine. So we're gonna go over this again. Now, it doesn't have to be like perfectly chopped, but I really like when you cut it relatively fine. Great. So now when this is chopped, we're going to add it to our eggs. And I love pickles. Pickles are my favorite part of Olivier salad. They're the reason I love it so much. The next thing I'm going to add here is peas. You don't want to necessarily use a frosted mix, so just peas are enough. And then we're going to add our potatoes and our carrots. Okay, so we have our potatoes and carrots fresh from the cold. And we're going to add them in here. If you're making this in summer, which I don't know why you'd be making Olivier salad in summer, but if you are, like maybe like a potato salad for a party, then, you know, you just have to make it in advance. Typically what people do is they cook the veggies the day before, and then on the day of you add in all the seasoning. So we're gonna mix it up, and then we're gonna add our seasonings. So the seasoning is going to be mayo. The seasoning is going to be the French white wine vinegar. The seasoning is going to be garlic. So we're gonna dice our garlic. And notice that we're treating garlic like seasoning, not ingredient. Now, you can add onion or you can skip onion. I'm choosing to skip it this year because frankly, today, because frankly, my daughter hates raw onion, so I'm just not gonna use it. But my recommendation, if you're making this with onion, is that you use shallots. Shallots are much finer in flavor, and so they're not gonna give you like a giant, you know, hit in your face with that raw onion. I grew up in a household where my mom hates raw onion, so we try not to put raw onion in things if we can help it. And if we have to, we either use shallots or we use purple onions, which are a little bit less pronounced. But garlic, we love garlic. Give us all the garlic you can think of. So it's interesting because garlic also has a very strong flavor, but we happen to love it. So again, you do the combination of flavors you want. I'm going to skip the garlic today, but you can add garlic if you want. I'm going to skip the onion today if you want, and I recommend adding shallots. Another thing you can do is you can take regular onion and you can soak it in a bowl with water. If you soak onion in a bowl with water for even 10 minutes, it's going to make the flavor a lot softer and a lot more mellow, and then it's not that strong. So now we're going to mix it up. We're gonna try not to spread everything. Going to be delicate, and again, notice I'm using a wooden spoon because that's, when you grow up in a former Soviet household, that everybody's using wooden spoons. So now I was recently told that saying former Soviet is also political. So I just want to make it clear, I'm not trying to offend anybody. This is it just means a geographic area to me. So it's meant as a geographic statement, not a statement about politics or the war, which I hope will stop. That is a statement. I would like that war to end, as most wars. So once you've given this a stir, we're gonna add a little bit of salt. Not a ton. And then mix that in. And then we're gonna put a little bit of herbs. Now, it's up to you. It's up to you how many herbs you want. I actually don't tend to put herbs in my salad, but today I'm feeling the dill. So I'm gonna put a little bit of dill in my Olivier. But really, when I say a little, I mean very little. I just want the suggestion of the flavor, and I wouldn't put any other herbs in Olivier salad. only dill. So I would dice it. I'm gonna dice it really fine. In this case, it needs to be fine. You do not want a big mouthful of dill. And then you're gonna add it to your salad. Okay, so that's it. Now, if you were to add any ham or sausage, kielbasa, ветчина, any kind of roast beef, like cooked roast beef would work well in it. You go for it, but I'm used to it being like this. So we're just gonna put it now in a nice bowl. So we're gonna put it in a nice bowl. I wanna show it to you. Hopefully I didn't spill it everywhere. I did a little, but. And we're gonna clean our counter so it doesn't look crappy. And then we're going to put a little bit into our bowl so we can taste it. And that's it, guys. Now let's taste it. Potatoes, carrots, it's all so comforting. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Olivier tastes better the next day. So if you really want it to taste good, make it a day in advance. So it's like a 3-day process. One day you boil, the next day you make the salad, and then you eat it the next day, the 3rd day, because it's gonna taste the best. Love these flavors, guys. These are the flavors of my childhood. And I think they're literally some of the best flavors out there. So if you want to make a nice Soviet, Russian, Ukrainian style dinner, these are the things you need on your table. You need a bowl of borscht and a bit of Olivier salad. And with these two, bon appetit. And by the way, if you liked what you saw today, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to hit like. Subscribe, it's a new channel, it's a new program on our channel. So we really need you guys to continue staying with us. And tune back next week for another episode of Around the World with Ksenia's Table. So good. So good.